that's something where now that I've made the decision, like I'm going to go wherever I need to go to be a reporter, that's something you have to consider is I've never been to Wausau. And in order to really immerse yourself in the community as well as just feel comfortable, because, hey, my whole life is here right now, I know that picking up and moving to somewhere else, I'm going to first of all join whatever's in the area, whether that's yoga, Pilates. I'm going to go out and do the 5Ks that happen and try to meet as many people as possible, as well as just kind of make myself comfortable in a new area. And I think through doing those things in the community, whether it is the 5K that people do on the weekends or gardening to improve the betterment of the environment and everything around, just doing things with people in the community and immersing myself that way is how I plan on starting a network and connecting, as well as just being open and never really saying no to an opportunity, especially because it is a new place and any opportunity there would be an awesome one. So.
Good. One last question.
Yeah.
Hopefully you've had a chance to check out our website, our social platforms, maybe even a newscast through live stream. So what were your first impressions? What did you like? What might we be able to improve?
So I definitely think that what I love about the small market in Wisconsin is that it's still Midwest, and I come from Columbus, Ohio. I've gone to school in Chicago. I've never left the Midwest, and telling Midwest stories, whether it's adversities, triumphs, whatever it is really important to me. And what I love about the newscast that you all hold is you do local stories, whether it's the crime report. I saw one on a stabbing from the other night, or you also cover the statewide stories, the governor, anything having to do with the larger universities. I think that it's a great combination of local and as well as larger stories that impact the community. I noticed that you localized the dog flu piece, and we're doing that here in Chicago. And I think that that's one of those things where you can take something large that's nationwide or in the Midwest and make it more local. So that's definitely something that I look forward to working on.
Good. And normally at this point I ask what questions you have for me. So I don't know, do we have time for that or?
Probably later on.
Okay. So thank you. Very nice job, Molly.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Does Molly get the job?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful presentation, and it gives you some idea of what you go through if you haven't already. And remember, this was the second interview. She had already passed the first test, and I'll hire her. Next, nobody starts out as the boss. And you start somewhere and you work your way up, and it's stage by stage, bit by bit, and it's competitive, and you finally are able to reach the top of whatever it is that you seek. And to be the president and general manager of a television station that's a wonderful station in the third market in the United States is an achievement. And next we're going to hear from our host and the president of this station. Before that, Ed, I just want to say again, John,
Yeah.
thank you for your hospitality.
Of course.
Thank you. Please convey it to all the members of your staff who have been just wonderful. We really appreciate being here, and it's a wonderful thing. So for all these panelists, they could be in bed too, But thank you very, very much. So let's hear your story.
Well, thank you, Dick. Lou.
Hey.
No, thank you. Hey, be rest assured that your interview is not going to go that smoothly. That was terrific. Molly did a great job, but it's not going to be quite that smooth. It was terrific. Molly, how do you think you did?
Better than I expected.
Okay. Would you have changed any of your answers, looking back on it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I asked those two questions. Those are my two favorite questions to end an interview. I always ask a candidate how they think they did in an interview, and I always ask, okay, if you could go back and change one of your answers, what would it be? So I'm always curious to see how they react to those questions, because I think it kind of knocks them off balance a little bit, and it's just always good to get their sense of how they think it went. And usually we're on the same page, but sometimes if they say, boy, I really blew this interview, I'm always curious to see if they have that much confidence to be able to say that. That's actually a really good thing for me. So everybody's talking about how long they've been out of school. I've been out of school 27 years, I think. I don't know how I got to be the old guy on the panel. Doug, how'd that happen, you know? How old are you? How old are you, by the way?
48.
48. I am the old guy. I'm 49, so I am the old guy on the panel. Jesus. I really don't know how that happened. I started out doing what Emily is doing for MAQ. I was doing it for CBS Network. I was a planning analyst for them, which was their word for, cell service person. It was a research position. It was an it's an analyst. I was a researcher. I looked at their thousands and the audience deliveries and put it together and did under delivery weight, which is, I'm sure, something you do, as well as kind of built sales packages for the account executives to go out and sell. So that's how I started out, and that was 25 years ago for CBS. And unlike Roz, I'm in my fifth house in my career. I've moved my wife 5 times, which she loves me for that, but she tells me that this is pretty much it. She's done moving, which is great. Probably the worst time was when I moved her when she was 7 months pregnant, and we were 2 weeks early, and we had just started just getting to know our new doctor there, and she went into labor on December 31st, and we didn't know where the hospital was, so we just kind of drove around and found it. I'm not kidding. I took the wrong exit, but anyway, that's more of an aside than anything else. But I do want to echo what Lou said. You know, the fact that you're here this morning, the fact that you gave up a Saturday morning is just terrific. I'm going to try to keep my comments brief because I want to get to your questions, because I think that's probably the best part of this program. I'm reminded, and I saw Dick and Lou before, and I was at NC State down running a station down in Raleigh, WTVD, and we had this same panel, similar room, and one of the, don't ask this question because it drives me crazy, one of a young woman, she was so earnest and so nice, and I kind of took her head off because she was 21 or 22 years old, and she asked about work-life balance. And I'm like, are you crazy? You don't get to have work-life balance. You're 21 years old. And I remember that so clearly because I really felt guilty afterwards. And I tried to find her afterwards and apologized. But it was really, because you really don't in this business. You know, we're looking for the people that are going to work the overnights, that are going to start at 10 a.m., that aren't going to care what shift they are, that are going to give up their Saturday mornings. You know, and sometimes when we, how many of you want to be in front of the camera, by the way? Okay. Sometimes my news director and I will tag team on the interview, and we have a reporter come in, and one of my news director's favorite questions is, you know, what kind of reporting you want to do. And every reporter kind of answers that the same way, and you get the sense, and I'm probably dating myself, but, you know, everybody wants to be that Charles Osgood piece, and they want to do CBS Sunday Morning, and it's fantastic. But really what we're looking for is that person who's going to say, boy, I really want to get in front of yellow crime tape and report the news, or I want to report on that trailer park fire. You know, that's what a lot of what you're going to be doing. You know, so don't make the mistake in an interview and say, boy, I really want to do this type of journalism, or I really love documentary styles or things like that. We know that. Everybody loves that. That's your dream job. We get it, you know, but you want to be that aggressive person that says, you know what, I don't care what the story is. I want to be in the A block. That's what I want to be. I don't care what the story is. You put me in the A block of your news, that's the story I want, regardless of what it is. And that's really the type of person we're going to be looking for, particularly on the level you're going to be going in. It's great. We all know. We all love to make great TV. We get it, you know. But we want that person who's aggressive enough to say, just give me the lead story, give me the A block, because everything else is relegated, you know, to something else. If you're not in the A block, you know, that's really where you want to be. I took some notes along here as well, so forgive me. I love the comment about Sarah made about cover letters. because as somebody who's been in this business for a while, it's not so much the cover letter, but do something different to distinguish yourself, please. Whether that's a traditional cover letter, don't underestimate the value of snail mail. It's, you blow through, I get 150, 200, sometimes 300 emails a day. It's very easy to delete an email. But my assistant, fortunate enough to have one, she goes through my mail, she creates a little folder for me, and she says, here's where I get my mail. And if there's a letter in there, I read it. So don't underestimate the value of the snail mail, because it ends up on my desk and I take the time to go through it and on a different level. So it's very important to do some of those things. The other piece of really practical advice, you're going to see job listings that say no phone calls, please. If you're a reporter, ignore that. If you want to get into sales, ignore it. They don't really mean it. And I'm not kidding. That's just a way to get the first cut of people who really don't want the job out of them. So that's going to and if you do that 10 times, it's going to backfire on you twice. All right? So just know that. But as a general rule, ignore it. I think that's really practical and important. What other pearls of wisdom can I impart in a short time? I guess that's about it. I mean, we talked about relationships a lot. I think that's important. My dad's fraternity brother got me the first interview at CBS. So that's interesting to hear that. It does come full circle. I'm actually having lunch with him next week because and he's running Fox Network sales here in Chicago. His name is Dan Rank, terrific guy, and it's the very first opportunity that I've had to take the guy to lunch and to thank him, which is kind of funny. But that's it. I really want to get to your questions. And hey, for those of you, I will give out my email address, John, john.h.idler, idler, @abc.com. There's a lot of you, so if I don't get back to you right away, forgive me, but I will try. If you have a question that you don't get to today, or you don't want to pick my brain or see who you can talk to, we can certainly make that happen. So I'll pass the microphone to Michelle. Thank you for being so generous. I know you're a reporter and you're dying to grab the mic.
I need that. Hi, my name is Michelle. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. In front of the camera, and Michelle has won 6 regional Emmys.
I almost denied you your introduction.
And also a very coveted award, the Edward R. Murrow Award. So here's an award winner, and in front of the cameras, Michelle.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I anchor the 6 and 10 o'clock newscast at the CBS affiliate in Madison, Wisconsin. We call it a legacy station there. And, everyone here has been talking about how long they've been out of school. I've been out of school for about 13 years. And I took maybe the more traditional route. I started out in a small market. I started out in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is a great place to start because it has a beach. And they pay you in sunshine. It's wonderful. And then I moved to Springfield, Missouri, and worked there for 8 years. And then went back to North Carolina for about 3 years. And then now I've been in Madison for almost 2. So when I graduated school, I actually did not think that I was going to be on air. I went to school for producing. And I sent out 2 tapes. We had to report in school as well. So I sent out 2 tapes, and that was the first job that I got, was a reporting job. And my first job, I reported. I shot my own stuff. I edited my own stuff. And we barely did the web back then, which is kind of funny now. And then when I went to Missouri, I thought that I was like stepping up in the world, so I never had to shoot for myself. And then the industry really changed. A lot of my friends were losing their jobs. A lot of people got laid off just because of the economy. So we all started shooting for ourselves and editing and really changing the way we did news and the way we gathered information. Then you throw in social media, and it's not just like, hey, I'm partying on the weekends on Facebook. That's what it used to be. Facebook was before, I was after Facebook, but I mean, that's what you see with young people, or you used to see with young people, and now it's really become something that we use as a news gathering and a news information tool. So, so it was really interesting how things have changed. And even when I was the evening anchor, I started shooting my own stuff. And it wasn't really because I had to, it was because I wanted to. That's really where the industry has gone. And I feel like if you are someone who doesn't want to do the work, then you need to find a really good 9-to-5 job somewhere else doing something that is not the same as this, because if you're not willing to put in the effort, it's going to be really hard for you to succeed. For me, we were talking about A blocks. I mean, that was the stuff that I did as a reporter. I always wanted to fight for the lead. It didn't matter if it was Springfield, Missouri or Wilmington, North Carolina. There's always great news going on, and you always have to do enterprise stories, which means that you're coming up with your own ideas. And also, there are a lot of crime stories that you have to do. Live shots, you want it to be active. You want to come up with like all these brilliant ideas. You want to volunteer yourself to be live at noon, 5, and 6. And hey, I'll write a VOSOT for 10. I mean, those are the things that I did as a general assignment reporter. And then I had the opportunity to start anchoring, which I thought was something that maybe I didn't want to do, but I've done it now for the last, 7 years, and have really enjoyed it. It's interesting because you want to be a seasoned journalist as an anchor. You want to help lead some of the initiatives that are going on in your newsroom. It's not just about smiling and reading the prompter. It's about being an ambassador for your station, sometimes an ambassador for the city that you live in. Did you guys watch the Final Four? Anyone a Badger fan? We got to, we got to go to Indianapolis, which is you think it's a great gig, but we worked 7 days straight. We usually went to bed around 2 in the morning and got up at 7 in the morning. So, the funny thing is everyone's like, but it was a lot of fun. And yeah, it is a lot of fun. You have to always say that it was a lot of fun, but it's grueling work, to be honest. You don't want to insult anyone, because a lot of people would, spend thousands of dollars to go to the Final Four, but in reality, I was kind of dreading it because it was painful. And then when we lost at the end, it was even more painful. For me, I report as much as I can. I volunteer to shoot as much as I can. I edit as much as I can. But we have some really talented photographers also who do that too. So it just kind of depends on the situation. But my boss really enjoys the fact that I will volunteer to do that work. I kind of do a lot with our social pages, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Google+, YouTube. We use Bamboozer and Ustream sometimes. I'm always trying to be live streaming at some point just because of transparency. So if there's a breaking news situation, and I will volunteer to go out and do the live shot, maybe field anchor if it's a really big story. I like to just live stream because then everyone in my newsroom sees what I'm seeing. They're seeing it as I'm seeing it, and they get information, so I don't have to actually make 10 phone calls and say, this is what I've got. They already know what I've got. And then also it gives the viewers a behind-the-scenes look at what I'm doing as well, and I think that that's important in this day and age because people want the information now. You have to be very careful with all that stuff as well for ethical reasons, but I like doing it. Advice, some of the best advice that I had was from a news director who said, do not call my newsroom, say that you want to work for me, and say that you should be working at my station because you've done your time, because you're ready for it because you've done your time. And so I feel like that's a really good piece of advice, because for me, when the tornadoes come or the hurricanes come, I'm working. I'm volunteering to be out in the field, or I'm volunteering to come at the desk, or maybe I'm not even on air. Maybe I'm just making the phone calls and doing whatever. You never stop paying your dues. Doesn't matter how many years you've been in the business. If you think that you're done working because you've worked 5 or 10 years in a medium market, it's not probably a good thing to say to someone if you want a job. The work-life balance is a really interesting thing because I don't have a work-life balance either. Everything I do is really for work in the sense that that's why I have lived in so many cities. That's how I met my husband. That's how I've done everything. And we make decisions kind of as journalists on where we want to go and what we want to do. Granted, it has kind of like delayed some of our bigger picture things. Like we don't know where we're going to live in 5 years, and we don't know if we're ever going to have a family other than our 2 dogs. But those are good things too. I mean, those are things that make us happy. So, yeah, my biggest advice for you is just never think that you're too good for the work. Never think that you are done paying your dues, and be willing to change, because it was a really scary time just a few years ago when all my friends were losing their jobs. And I remember thinking how blessed and lucky I was that I still was able to work, and it was we were all willing to kind of do whatever it took. And I think that is the compassion, that's the passion that you have to have in this business, is that you have to be able to get the story, you have to be able to have compassion, but you have to be able to do what it takes for the information for your community. So, sometimes you're really saving lives. When I worked in Southwest Missouri, do you guys remember the Joplin tornado? Okay, so my husband worked that one. I was already in North Carolina, but we had some pretty massive tornadoes in Missouri, and we were live on the air for like 12 and 13 hours at a time, like almost every spring. And we would actually have people call and say, "You saved my life." Like, we didn't know that the tornado was coming. We didn't hear the sirens. We didn't know what was happening, and you saved our lives. And I know that sounds silly, but that is the stuff that makes me want to work in news, because you really do have that impact. And I don't know. That's it. That's it for me.
Thank you. That was inspiring. Doug Levy has been not only an on-air personality, but also involved in sales. So we're going to get 2 lessons in one. Doug Levy.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Good. I had a non-traditional start to the career, and I think it's been unlike so many other people's stories. But there's a way to become a doctor. Everyone kind of goes through a certain way, and you become a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant. There really is no single way to get into this business, and I think there's probably a different path for every single person who's broken through and found a way. I'm going to tell a quick story that my mom likes to tell about me, but she talks about my first grade teacher who once called her up on the phone crying out of frustration that I was constantly talking out of turn and disrupting the class. And she asked me, she said, "Doug, why do you insist on continuing to be disruptive in the class?" And my response, according to my mother, was, "Well, I really think that the other kids want to hear what I have to say." In first grade. So I was destined to be somebody who had a microphone in front of him. And I went to the University of Iowa, worked at KRUI, the student radio station, had a show that was the single most important 3 hours of my week every week. That's all I wanted to do. Everything, going to class and partying, all that stuff was great, but the radio show was really what it was all about. And then while I was in school, I got a job at a commercial station in Muscatine, Iowa. And so I would leave the party at 11 o'clock at night on Saturday, drive through secondary farm roads throughout Iowa, and then find myself in the Quad Cities. And I would do midnight to 6 a.m. Saturday night. And again, nobody had to ask me to do it. Nobody had to pull me away from the party. I gladly went. And did that, and then came back to Chicago and thought, I'm ready to be on the air in Chicago. And it became a hobby of mine to send out tapes. And I would take different slices of a tape, different pieces of a show, and find ways to just send it to every single person in the country who had an ad in a paper or a trade publication trying to get on the air. I was also waiting tables at the time. And eventually, what I really wanted to do, the only reason I went into the business is I wanted to work at a station here in Chicago, WXRT. I don't know if anybody listens to 93.1 XRT, but when I was growing up, that was the coolest station in town, playing the best music and where I wanted to be. And I got a job working at XRT, and I did weekend